what are the features you like. All these things can be discussed in focus groups. So these are methods of data collection: interviews, then focus groups, and then observations. Observations, one need not interact with the respondent, although in some cases there is some interaction. So normally researchers observe and record behavior without interaction. For example, a teacher can, or an observer who has come to understand the effectiveness of teaching in a class, he can sit in the class and then he can observe. So observation is another type of data collection technique where the researcher basically observes, and there can be participation of the researcher. So sometimes the researchers take part in the setting, and sometimes it is simply non-participant observation. So participant can ask a few questions in between while observing. Then there can be non-participant observation. Researcher observes without engagement. In some interview boards, there are some psychologists which are there. They observe the interview, the candidate, basically. So observations is also one of the methods of data collection. So we have discussed interviews, then focus groups, and now observations. Okay. Now examples of observational research. For example, observing how customers travel in a metro train to improve their experience. So there can be a researcher can silently enter or secretly enter a metro compartment and see what kind of behavior people are displaying. Also, observing how customers navigate a grocery store to improve store layout. So store layout can be improved. Observing teacher-student interactions to improve classroom engagement. That is what I talked about in the previous slide. So teacher-student interactions is also another method of collecting qualitative data through observations. Now, strength and limitations of observations. Strength is that it captures real and unfiltered behavior. So, and this is true when you are observing someone silently, secretly. Useful for studying social interactions. Limitations is it can be time consuming and maybe subjective. You have observed something, but there is no written record. In an interview, there is a written record of the transcript. Okay, in focus group also, somebody has spoken. So you can have a transcript. You can have an audio recorded or a video recording of the focus group or the interview. Whereas in the case of observations, it may be quite subjective. You have observed something, and when you note it down or when you report it, it could be subjective in nature. Ethical concerns in covert observations. So if you are observing people in public places, people in metro, at metro station, outside the train and inside the train, their behavior, then there are ethical concerns. You have not taken the consent of the person to observe that person. Okay, so in covert observations or secret observations, there are ethical concerns. Now, case studies is another method to collect qualitative data. So, case studies are required when you want to collect data in detail in order to carry out an in-depth analysis of a particular case. So, case study is a detailed examination of an individual, group, or organization. Example, studying Tesla electric car strategy to understand innovation in the automotive industry. So this becomes a very specific topic, and one can go into great detail in this topic, and this will be classified as a case study. Ethnographic research. Basically, ethnographic, the word has come from ethnicity. So, a long-term study of a cultural or social group. So, ethnographic research is carried out often by immersing in culture. So, the researcher could decide to live in a rural setting for months to observe, for example, traditional agricultural practices or traditional marriage practices. Okay, so this type of study where the researcher immerses themselves in a culture in order to understand their practices. So we have discussed different data collection techniques: interviews, focus groups, observations, case studies, ethnographic research. Okay, so these are all different data collection techniques. So now, once the data has been collected, you carry out an analysis of the document. So document analysis basically means involves reviewing written or digital material to extract the qualitative data. Sometimes you are given some document, from that document you extract your qualitative data. So this is a term used in qualitative research, so that is why I put it here. Examples are studying business trends from company records, understanding reasons for historical floods through newspaper articles. So you see, here the word understanding is important. Whenever you do qualitative data analysis, you try to understand a phenomenon. You do not want to quantify. Quantification is not there. Whereas in quantitative research, like the one carried out in engineering and technology, you are trying to find out the magnitude of the flood. What was the quantity of the volume of the water which has been observed at a particular site or a location. But here you are trying to understand the reasons for historical flood, and for this purpose you can use newspaper articles. Newspaper articles of the past can be used. This type of research has been done by some people in different parts of the world, including in India. Now there is a term called triangulation. Now, triangulation basically involves using multiple data sources to improve the accuracy of analysis. Triangulation is also a term used in engineering in the sense of surveying. You observe a particular point from 3 different locations and then try to GPS use this type of method, which is called triangulation. The global positioning systems. There are 3 satellites and they try to get the data and try to identify the location of an object. But here in qualitative research, triangulation is basically using multiple data sources to improve the accuracy of analysis. Now, for example, if one wants to understand or study mental health issues in colleges, then you can carry out interviews, that's fine. Also, you can see, you can also observe the behavior of the students in the classroom, and also you can carry out surveys. Okay, so a number of data collection techniques can be combined together to tackle a particular problem and to collect the data for that problem. Like the one I have mentioned here, mental health issues in college students. Now, during the data collection, there is a requirement to sometimes record and transcribe. So, whenever you are recording interviews, after the interview has been recorded, transcripts are prepared. This method is called recording and transcribe. So, this is also a term which is used in qualitative data analysis. And field notes are also there, transcription tools. Nowadays, it is possible to convert an audio to text or a text to audio automatically. So this has simplified the task of researchers working in the field of qualitative research. Otherwise, earlier it was very difficult to convert any audio text to a text, audio data to text. One had to write down by pen each and every line after listening to the audio, pausing it, writing it. But nowadays you feed an entire audio and there are software available that can give you the transcript of that audio. Now there are certain ethical considerations in qualitative research. Informed consent from participants. So participants should be informed well in advance that this data is being collected. It may be used publicly. Okay. So there should be a consent. Also, ensuring confidentiality and data protection. So this is also an issue. Sometimes the confidentiality of the data is not ensured and data is not protected. It is passed on to people who might misuse the data. Although the research has to be more or less objective, but the problem with the qualitative research is that the researcher has some notions or some preconceived ideas and then he has a bias. For example, if a researcher is conducting a survey on the stresses at workplaces. Okay. So stress at workplace, he might have suffered stresses at workplace himself. So when he interviews people, then his bias comes into this. So that is what we mean by researcher bias. And one has to protect employee identity in workplace culture studies, workplace and culture studies both, because if you do not protect the identity of the person who is working in a company, then there is a problem. He might be harassed by the management. That can happen. So protecting employee identity in workplace is also very important. And also, if some patients are suffering from critical disease, you do not want to disclose their names. So informed consent, confidentiality, these are some ethical questions that often arise in qualitative research. Now, up till now, we have seen what are different qualitative data collection techniques. Qualitative data